Welcome into Chatt It Up Sports. Boys and girls, we have a very special family on today. The first father son duo we've ever had. We are very, very welcomed by the Spinelli family. Joe and Scott, three claps one time, Joseph. That was a good one. That was a good one. That doesn't always hit, especially in the new place. But yeah, boys, thank you guys so much for coming on. SoCon legend, I'll start the closest to me. SoCon legend himself, Joe Spinelli, the youngest son of Scott, our reoccurring guest, by the way. Joe, welcome on, bud.
Thank you for having me. Excited to talk basketball with you.
Love it, man. Love it. And the one and the only Scott Spinelli, a hell of a resume in the basketball world. You've been an assistant at Texas A&M, all these wonderful places. Coached at Chicago State, a great voice, Boston's finest. Scott, thank you. Thank you again for coming back, brother. How are you?
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I wish you were my agent, Chase, to be honest, but thanks for having us tonight. We're excited.
I got you, dog. I got you. Yeah, listen, I can hype you up anytime you need it. Just give me a call beforehand if you're going to be walking in somewhere. Boys, let's get right to it. I am. This is my favorite time of the year, personally. I assume it's y'all's as well.
Oh, yeah.
I can just watch all the college basketball in the world. My wife did not understand. It was the first year we were dating, and she didn't understand how much I really did love sports. And I was like, "Hey, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch college basketball for 8 straight hours." And she's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can just come over. I'll make you food." Da, 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 da. I think she thought, surely we'll take long breaks. She don't understand that that's not what we do in the Green family. And I sat there for 8 hours and she goes, "This is obnoxious. We have to leave." And so it's like, it's basketball, baby. You got to understand March Madness is the lifetime. It's the lifeblood for my heritage, for my family. But I can only imagine it is for you boys. Is there anything from the regular season, and I guess we'll say conference tournaments, that stuck out to you that made an impact of like, this is a special year? I'll start with you, Scott.
Well, I think that the one thing that really has become clear now in college is obviously with these salary caps per se, with these teams at the higher levels. I mean, to see some of the numbers that are being spent on these rosters, this is a whole new landscape for all of us, right? I mean, remember, right, Chase, this. I mean, paying players was illegal. Now, not only is it legal, it's who can actually accumulate most money in their collective combined with the revenue share at their schools. So, seeing the amount of money, look at Kentucky's roster. I mean, $22 million in college for 15 players is truly amazing. So, I think some of that, is obviously all new for all of us, and then seeing again, so many different players transferring throughout, their time. I mean, multiple schools, looking to get into the portal to get the best deal. So I think there's a whole different, land college is what used to be, and it.
We lose you?
I can hear you.
Okay, I got you. Sorry, you kind of faded out for just a second. I was like, "Oh man, I lost my boy." But yeah, it is. It's so different. I mean, I can only imagine, like, just from what you've seen in the past, I mean, it really feels like 5 years, much less 15, 25, 35. This is just a different landscape because we were talking beforehand. Our buddy Drew, he's like, there's a 40% decrease in upset wins this year amongst college basketball. And it's just because you're paying an enormous amount of money to coaches and to players. I was looking at a graphic earlier just talking about, I think every team there's just an enormous amount of money going to coaches, obviously, and players, and that combined salary pays for you at least to make a top 10 seed. Like, no matter what, all those guys, all the top 35 guys that have the highest paid coaches plus highest paid rosters are all in. They're all in. You can pay for it. You're going to win because you're going to get in that way, and you're just stealing away. And so, Joe, to kind of piggyback off that, you've seen it. You've been in the world of like the SoCon where it's easy to go to the SEC. It's easy to go to the ACC, especially where you were in the Carolinas. Like, what are you seeing from friends or, ex teammates or amongst those worlds, like what does that look like for your mid-major teams like going forward?
Yeah, no, I think my dad covered it well talking about, the transfer portal. I think, a lot of times guys, just want to get the money. Obviously when you're getting offered a higher check, it's something hard to turn down, just to
Yeah.
get a, head start in life. Obviously education's kind of put on the back burner nowadays. So I mean, teammates get offered money. You got to take it to, obviously, playing a role, obviously wanting to play more. Obviously, sometimes it's better to stay put, obviously at a lower level. Um, but I think the retention really in the mid-major level really helps these teams, not only advance in postseason play, but ultimately be a better basketball team. But yeah, no.
It's so different too, because being here around UTC and seeing ETSU, they went on a good run, but Furman upsets them. But it's like, how long are those guys going to last? Because you don't have to go any more than 3 hours away, and you're at a big time D1. And UTC had somebody go to Gonzaga last year, and I'm sure it's the same for you. I'm just worried that we're never going to get these upsets again, and it feels like that. I don't know about you guys. Scott, back to you. Do you feel like there is a chance we might have a little bit of a washout from last year, which was all chalk? Only had one double-digit seed go in, that was Arkansas. So it's like, all right, it's not the same. Do you feel like there's any chance of upsets this year?
I mean, I could answer it.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, we lost Scott.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a chance of upsets. I think this year, last year, like you said, it was a weird year, to be honest with you. I don't see as many upsets, like you said, because of this NIL stuff. I agree with that 100%. But I mean, I definitely think there could be, more than last year. Obviously, the only double-digit seed, like you mentioned, was Arkansas, which, I mean, I feel like there definitely could. There's a chance. I feel like there's a few good mid-major teams that have retention this year. One of them I think is Akron. I think they got a legit chance.
Yeah, because that's the one that everybody's looking at, and I always felt like Hawaii was the one, but I feel like they got a kind of a crappy draw. So with Arkansas, I love this Arkansas team, and again, you're going to run into a buzzsaw. Speaking of, with Arizona being what they have been down the stretch, Duke obviously in a little bit of peril, losing one of your best players, but then, little Boozer steps up and decides he's going to play just the exact same role. Do you feel like we're going to have a great upset run and have some big time teams win early, but it's still going to wind up chalk? Is that kind of how you feel too?
I feel like, yeah, like you said, there definitely could be one or two here, but just for like a true Cinderella from one of these, double digit seeds, I don't know. It's going to be tough. At the end of the day, these teams got so much money and so many players. I mean, I feel like it would be really hard.
It'd be so tough, wouldn't it? I mean, like, you're just going against monsters. I mean, my Lord, dude, it is seeing like Cam Boozer be so ready. I'm trying to like think back, and especially like your era's grown up with a different version of one and dones. Like, these kids are just so much more ready. I'm sure you see it all the time. Like, the guys you play against, do you feel like your age and your group's been trained differently? Like the younger kids, like, do you see it more? Cause like, I feel like we just all kind of played AAU to play AAU, but it's just a different world for you guys now.
Yeah, no, 100% is, especially with social media now, like social media is even, higher up, like more engagement, obviously now than even when I was a senior in high school, obviously all that, but like you said, to your point, physically, like Boozer, like you mentioned, he's, physically well over beyond his years,
So different.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously facing these mid-major teams, obviously like there's guys in the high major level that don't even play much. That would be unbelievable at a mid-major level. They're just taking a bag and, sitting the bench, just whether they're playing a small role or not even playing, So I feel like that goes hand in hand with, obviously the mid-majors not even be able to compete necessarily,
Yeah.
like you said before.
What's I mean, you don't have to give like numbers or anything, but do you feel like you do hear a lot of like guys that are even like low tier role players? You can go to whatever X big school and make way more than you can at a mid major. Like even if you're not even playing, like it's worth it. Just go because you could set your family up almost.
Yeah, I mean, I have, I'm not naming any names, but there's
We
definitely
don't have to throw anybody under the bus.
people, friends, and that definitely have, taken the check, over, a role for a mid-major team. Happens very, very often, frequently. Yeah.
Yeah, because dude, you're how old are you now, Joe?
22.
22. Okay, so like, dude, 22 years old. Somebody offers me $100,000 more at where I came from. I was like, yeah, dude. I grew up on food stamps, so like, hey, $100,000 is going to change our lives forever, or at least set me up where I'm not in a tougher spot. Shout out to student loans. Appreciate it. So it's too great. I just get to a spot now where I'm like, I can't blame the kids, dude. I mean, those dollar signs will get anybody, and go into a cool atmosphere. And I was listening to Barstool a couple of days ago, like, it would still be cool even if I was a bench rider at Kansas to walk out and go into that field house and just see that every night would be so different than what we have.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
What's the best atmosphere you ever played in?
We played in some good. I think the toughest place we played in was at Illinois. I think at Illinois it was over Christmas break. I remember it was Star Wars night there. They had the Star Wars thing on the screen, and they had like, I remember it was sold out. I think some 15,000 people. Obviously, tough place to play.
I've always heard that.
Yeah, Illinois. Mm-hmm.
I've always heard that they bring a crowd, man. They said because I was listening talking about the, Missouri gets to play in St. Louis in the tournament. They're like, well, we went to St. Louis once before when we got our dicks kicked in by Illinois there, so it doesn't really matter where we play. So yeah, I was so impressed because I've heard that they really travel. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Where else did you get to go?
We played at Tennessee when I was back at Wofford. Wisconsin last year. At Texas was another one.
Oh, okay. You got to go. You got to do some traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I was kind of wondering now, like coming out, like I do think it matters on teams that travel. I think the Badgers travel well. I worry about some of these scoring teams. Wisconsin, have you seen a lot of these stats that, you got to be top 57 in offense, 37 in defense and total efficiency. And so I'm like, man, if we're not getting, these teams, but Arkansas and Illinois, I believe. No, Arkansas and Alabama, the two that were like, hey, your guys aren't good enough to win because you can't play defense. And I was like, I don't know, man. That's one of those teams that if they're going to travel. Arkansas definitely travels in basketball. Mm-hmm. Alabama definitely travels in every sport. And I just feel like there might be some changes this year because if you bring a little crowd, you bring some family along, those teams that can score can really score, and they might cause a little ruckus on the other end and make your teams get a little tighter. So, all right, Scott, you back?
Yeah, tell you what, on that same note, you can actually voice your discontent like most ACC teams, coaches, fans, administrators, and that every single year in the ACC, for the most part, at least even moving forward, the ACC tournaments in Charlotte, Greensboro, and it gives an incredible home court advantage to Duke and North Carolina, especially those two. Obviously, yes. Wake's not far, Clemson's not far as well, but again, if you're in the ACC and you're coming from Stanford now and California, you're pretty much going on the road in your conference tournament, right? So It is a little different, but to your point with the NCAA, I agree with what you said. It is, look, Nebraska's not far from home this year. They're going to Oklahoma City in that opening round game, which, by the way, that's going to be a challenge for them against Troy. I think Joe knows a little bit more about that Troy team. They're tough too. So, but it is an advantage for these teams to have home court. And you know, look, I remember playing, and Joe, you were just a baby. We played UCLA, and we won our first game. It was out at the Staples Center in California. We played UCLA when they had Love and Westbrook and Collison. I mean, they were Mama Butte. They were really good. So we were really good. So we had actually beaten BYU in the first game, and UCLA won their game, the second game, after ours. And we ended up playing them to advance to the Sweet 16. And when I tell you, we were up 10 with 10 minutes to go in a game that literally was low scoring. Ben Howland's team, great defensive team. I think the final score was like 51 or 53-49, but we were up 10 in the second half. And I remember Westbrook getting a steal off a double team of DeAndre Jordan. And Westbrook went down and just, you know, slammed it. And when I tell you there were 15,000 people, or how many people they fit in their capacity, were standing and screaming, the whole game changed from the big momentum switch on that play. So it is an advantage.
Oh yeah, man. It matters so much, especially in those environments where you're expecting kind of some weird little, I don't know, 50-50 play. It's just kind of quiet. I mean, I went to the Final Four they were in in Atlanta. And so I was like, it was cool because it was the first time going to a Final Four, but I also felt like it just wasn't the same. Like I was watching Ohio State play as that Greg Oden team. And I was like, it's a cool atmosphere. And then you go to like an SEC tournament and it's Kentucky. It feels like a totally different environment because those guys, that team travels, man. That team travels. And we're SEC guys here. Tennessee fan, Joseph's a Georgia fan. Florida feels like they're in a category of their own to me. I still think there's little flaws, but not huge. But outside of Florida, do you kind of believe in any of these teams? I mean, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, even Vandy. Like, do you feel like these teams have a chance to go on a run?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, are we specifically talking SEC?
Yeah, give me the SEC schools. That's where our pride lies around here. And just to talk to that's most of our audience.
Okay.
So.
Well, as you guys know, I mean, and we could talk about this, year in and year out. So much of the NCAA tournament is your matchup and who's playing who, right? I do think now it's a little bit less, it's anticlimactic a little bit this year now, or moving forward with the amount of money some of these teams have assembled, this talent pool. And so I'm not sure you're going to see these Cinderellas get past the first weekend as much as we used to see, a 13 or a 12 or, even a 11 seed. But, these high major teams are built for these NCAA tournaments. And so, anybody could beat anybody. I understand that. But I think what you have an advantage, at least the SEC teams have, first of all, very deep conference, incredibly competitive. Look, you could make a case for, some of these teams that didn't get in that are better than a lot of these teams that, did get in. I know Bruce Pearl talked a little bit about the Auburn situation, but, when you look at the teams top to bottom, look, Florida is playing as well as anybody. You got to give Coach Golding and his staff a lot of credit. They actually stumbled out of the gates, mainly because they played a very competitive schedule, but they really have it going. I mean, they didn't play as well against Vanderbilt in that, the SEC tournament game, but I mean, they're a really, really good team. I mean, their front court is as good as any front court in college basketball right now. So I think they're a team that you're going to have to keep an eye on here, and especially from the SEC. Is a very good team. I mean, I don't think in my mind they're as good as they were last year. But again, it's all about the draw that they get. First round, obviously, into their second round game, who they're going to be playing. But I do like Florida. I think they're going to be a tough team. I think Alabama now, with what just happened to them, it'd be interesting to see what's going to, I heard this young man, who made a decision that's going to, I think, prevent him from playing, from what I'm hearing yesterday. That's going to hurt them a little bit, especially with the depth in the backcourt. He's a good player. So I'm interested to see how they respond, to that as a seed. But, when you look around Arkansas, I mean, their point guard is probably is one of the best point guards, period, in college basketball as a freshman. Acuff is that good. He is that, he is that guy. He could single-handedly come into these games and really help Arkansas advance. So he's going to be, I think, a very key part of what Arkansas is going to do right now moving forward. But they could easily advance as well. And when you kind of step back and think about, some of these other teams that are coming from the SEC, I think any one of them, just because they've been so battle tested, that they could advance. But I do think Florida is the one team. I've always liked Alabama, the way they play. Look, Kentucky, I mean, with $22 million they've spent on that roster, they do have some injuries. You feel for them a little bit, but they're talented as well.
So talented,
so they could easily, win a couple games here. So I do think the SEC is primed to advance some teams here. Again, I don't know, matchup to matchup of who's going to get who, but they certainly have a lot of firepower in that league. But I think Florida right now, look, Vanderbilt, we haven't even talked about Vanderbilt. I mean, they're as good as anybody as well. Coming into they're playing good basketball right now as well. So, they got a tough draw. I think they're playing McNeese first game. That's going to be a tough game for them. But again, I don't think you're going to see these mid-major teams, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, too, is I don't think you're going to see these mid-major teams really just overpower any of these high major teams that are built with this kind of roster, with this kind of support and money.
Yeah, no. One thing we talked about earlier was, fans traveling, and Missouri plays in St. Louis. That's like a 2-hour ride. They play Miami, the 10-7 matchup. I think that's also going to be interesting. Obviously playing 2 hours away versus Miami, obviously having a longer flight. Definitely going to make a big difference for sure. No question about that.
Yeah. And and the Kentucky thing too is we were talking a little bit earlier, Scott, like the tricks of the trade, like trying to pick your bracket. It's like there's no national champion that's ever been outside of the top 57 in like offensive efficiency and top 37 in defensive efficiency. It's funny, Kentucky lies in one of those, despite being the 10th seed and the kind of this weird vibe of a Kentucky team, especially in the SEC this year. I mean, yes, they had comeback wins against Tennessee, but it's like, even to Kentucky fans, it's like, oh, Tennessee just lost that game instead of we came back and won. It really did feel like Tennessee was just the better team. Overall, we did it probably 4 or 5 times this year. That's why Tennessee is where they are. But I don't know. This Kentucky team just is so surprising. Like, I don't know. It feels like the year they would come out and, they'd make a run. You're like, okay, Santa Clara gets in. Good story for them. They finally get out of the WCC as an at-large, and they just ruin the party and go on a run. And because I don't know, of the top, the 2 seeds, I'll go with this: Iowa State, Houston. Those are 2 of my favorites. And then we got UConn and Purdue. All amazing teams, but all feel like they have small flaws. But I'll say this, like, of any of those 4, who's y'all's favorite? I'll start with you, Joe.
Out of the 2 seeds, oof.
Out of the 2s, baby.
I like Iowa State. I think Iowa State, the way they defend, I feel like they're due for a big year. Obviously, we talked about earlier retention, not only with the mid-majors, but the high majors. And obviously, Taman Lipsey's been there for 4 years now, veteran point guard. He's been into the Elite Eight, Sweet 16. I think with obviously the other pieces they have around him with Momcilovic and, the other guys, I think, also they got a good draw. I think this is their year to at least get to the Final Four, I think.
That they do feel like they have the best draw of the 2s. I liked it. I like that bottom half of that little bracket.
Mm.
Scott, what about you?
I tell you what, I mean, again, I think I like Iowa State to Joe's point. I think Houston is very underrated as well. I mean, but the draw, that they have is not as easy in their in that in that area, in the bracket that they're in. But I still think Houston. Look, last year, if you remember, I was really high on one of their players. I don't think I mentioned the kid. I was kind of didn't want to put that out there that I thought he was an NBA prospect, but I can now. I mean, Tugler was the kid last year that I thought so talented, and a lot of people weren't talking about him as a potential. He's an NBA player for sure, and the reason why is because he's got tremendous length. He obviously is versatile. You can play a lot of switching styles of defense with him at the five. He kind of reminds me of a smaller version of Nerlens Noel's. Joe, you remember him? He's a Boston kid, but he's had a great year. He just had a good tournament, first team in the tournament, Big 12 tournament. But I like Houston still. I think they're a team that you have to keep an eye on. And here's the other thing about Houston. I mean, they're going to defend. They're scoring the ball much better. They've got a couple freshmen that have really impacted them. I like Houston, in this tournament again so far. And I also have to tell you guys, do not underestimate the Big East. Do not. The one thing about the Big East, everybody's overlooking them now. St. John's got really a bad seed. I can't believe that they put UConn and St. John's in that same area. But I think Duke is vulnerable. I think they're banged up. I don't know if Nagamba's going to be back, but they're guards. I mean, if they play a team that really pressures them and extends their pressure. Listen, Kalen Boozer, he came off the other day. He played great, but I think they could easily be beat in that bracket. But I don't overlook this UConn team as a 2 seed. They've got lineage. I know they've lost a couple in a row, but when the NCAA tournament comes, if you look at the past champions in the Big East, no matter how many teams they have, and this year's only a few, they always represent well. And one of those teams, to me, is going to advance really deep into the tournament.
Yeah, especially after St. John's, what they've done the last couple months. I know they've had some stinkers. I know they played UConn off the loss, and they just got mollywopped. I get that. But this St. John's team does still have one of the best coaches of all time. And you mentioned it. It's just something different about that league. It's one of my favorite conference tournaments every year. Like, I mean, I love the SEC and the ACCs because I got 2 teams in there. But for the most part, the Big East tournament's the Big East tournament. Like, it's the best one. It's in the Garden. It's awesome. But those 2 teams, I still feel like Villanova's not the worst thing in the world. Like, that's one of those teams that you got a good Villanova team for once, and it feels like after they lost coach, it just feels like it's time for them to get back. So I know Utah State's another one that feels like they're underseeded, but with St. John's getting the 5, I did not understand that. They played so well down the stretch. I just thought that's a 4 at worst, but I don't know. Tough run for them, but I was going to go off what you were saying about Houston with Flagler becoming just off. I mean, all these guys out of Houston and all these freshmen have become so poised. And Joe and I were talking a little bit about this, the training these guys have, but now we have 9 freshmen that could score 40 that can also just be the guy that's like, hey, we trust you with the ball in the last 7 seconds of a shot clock to not just score, but make the right decision for the first time. Do you know, what are you hearing from your coaching world? Is there some special sauce these 18-year-old kids have? Because I don't even have that kind of poise in a pickup game, much less what they have in these tournament games.
Well, I'm gonna actually hope that Joe can go with me on this one. Here's what I think with that. When you come into college as a freshman, and Joe, you just recently came in a lot, more recent than any of us, and now you're getting paid. You're getting paid to play. So the freshman, the notion of being that freshman coming in and saying, okay, you're going to have to work your way in, or you're going to, you're going to be trusted in certain situations and you'll develop over time. Look, man, some of these freshmen are getting paid seven figures. I mean, coming in. And so I think a lot of it has to do with, hey, I'm this good mentally. A lot of the grind in college basketball, Joe, it's a wear and tear. It's a long season, right? And so I think some of this with these freshmen and why they're so impactful to me has a lot to do with the fact that they're not coming in thinking, hey, I got to play behind him. I'm getting paid more than him. I'm getting paid just as much as him. I'm getting
Yep.
paid seven figures. I can really come in and help this team win. And I think it's more of that than anything that we're seeing now with some of these impactful freshmen. What do you think, Joe?
I mean, I think you couldn't have put it any better. I 100% agree. About, they don't even – freshmen nowadays getting paid, like you said, seven figures at the high major level. They're not expecting to play behind anybody. They're coming in there, obviously with a lot of confidence. And, I think that was perfect way to put it.
Joe, I'll ask you, since you've been kind of around this, like kind of a new wave of coaching. This the way it's played now, and like every bit of spacing is so different. Like, do you remember like having? And I guess it's a little different, I guess, the mid majors, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's this weird version of ISO anymore, like we had maybe like in the mid 2000s. Like when you guys are being taught and you guys are in practice and stuff, what does that look like as far as like, hey, you got to leave space in the paint, but we're going to bomb threes. Like, is that just kind of how it feels like in practice with your guys? It's like, hey, this is more efficient now. I mean, I know the Alabama way of coaching has took on a new world of itself because of what he's done. Does it still feel like that? And are you hearing that around a lot of your guys?
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like, even in practice drills, we play, 5-on-5 full court with a 10-second, shot clock, going full court. So, we drill that. So, you don't have time to, feed the post and do all these extra stuff. A lot of times, you're pitching it up ahead, one or two dribbles, drive, and, kick for a three, so no, I definitely agree with that. I feel like, it's more, playing fast up and down. You see a lot of these good teams now in the tournament. There's a bunch of them, even at the mid-major level.
Oh yeah.
They're just playing super, super fast. A lot of firepower, from three. And I agree. 100%.
Yeah, and I'll stay with you here because to the mid-major world, our Miami of Ohio, the Cinderella that I think everybody kind of wants. Like I think the committee nailed this. The fact that they put them in as the 11 play-in game is the best thing they could have done. It's like, hey, they haven't proved it, but you do deserve to get in. But you got to prove it, dude. You got to prove it. Play one big-time Power 4 school at the 11 game, and then you have a chance. And, of course, I hate it. I hate the fact that it's going into the Tennessee game because I always feel like that 11 seed that in the play-in wins. I don't know how much Miami of Ohio you've watched, but do we feel like they can make at least a one-game run?
Absolute 100%. I feel like, what we talked about earlier with the home court advantage. I mean, they're playing in Dayton, Ohio. That's like a 90-minute drive, I think, from Miami. They're going to all travel there. Like, it's going to be packed with, Miami, Ohio fans. And, I definitely feel like they definitely have a chance not only to win that game, but beat Tennessee as well. I feel like, they're legit. I really believe that, the way they play, obviously they're well coached. Definitely have a chance for sure.
Okay. Coach, I'll ask you this. If you are somebody like Miami of Ohio and you've not played anybody, let's be honest, you played one top 100 team, but you're going into that game. Like, how do you tell your team, like, what do you do for a little motivation there going in against, I guess it's Texas, right? I believe that's the 11 seed game.
SMU.
SMU, that's right. Yeah, ACC, that's right. ACC, SMU. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think the best thing that happened to Miami, Ohio, and we talked about this the other day with Joe, is that they lost. I think coming into the NCAA tournament undefeated the target even would have been bigger on their back. So I do think, it's a little bit easier now to get motivated, in the sense that, hey, we lost, we still get in. But I do think with all the chatter and social media today and all the people that are, kind of, to Joe's point, kind of demeaning Miami, they don't belong in, they shouldn't win. Oftentimes you see those teams get extra motivated and they come in and they play every possession. Look, if you're in this NCAA tournament, I do know this from winning games in the tournament, advancing as a player and as a coach, you have to make sure you play every possession like it's your last. And I think Miami, Ohio is coming in with that mindset. And I'm not saying SMU's not, because Miami, Ohio has a very difficult game in this opening round, even though I know, we're talking about potentially Miami beating them. But listen, SMU has got some really good players. They're physical, they're talented, they're battle tested. But again, sometimes the matchup and the determination and hey, look, the will to win, there is no statistic, there is no analytic that you can put out there on some players' will and desire to win. And I think, to Joe's point, that's what Miami is coming into. Has like, listen, we are determined. We'll, even though they might be bigger, more athletic, faster, they might be able to, they're high majors, they're getting paid probably a lot more than we are. We're coming in with that mindset. And if that mindset can carry them into a one-game victory, great. I don't know if it can get them to the second weekend. I really don't, not anymore, not with these teams, the way they've been built. But to Joe's point, I do think that that's going to have to be their mindset.
Yeah, it's got to be. You got to be locked in. I mean, like you mentioned, SMU is no walkover. This is not going to be an easy game. But the home court advantage part, as we mentioned earlier, this is going to be the one. That school is going to get really up for this game. You're going to have everybody come down. There's going to be a donor pays for a bus for the students to come down. It's going to be a whole thing. So it's going to be exciting. I'm glad we have that one on the Wednesday slate. I'm excited for that one. But I wanted to ask you guys about how it feels like whenever you lose somebody, because Texas Tech coming into the year, I love that team with Christian, with JT. I was like, this could be unbelievable run for them. And you lose somebody like JT Toppin, but you still have studs. Like you're still a very talented Texas Tech team. How does it feel like when a team does lose its ace and you're going to a tournament? I'm sure you guys have experienced this in some sort of fashion. Like, what do you how does this rotate in your mind? Like, hey man, we just lost, first team All-American JT Toppin. But where does that turn to? Does that just become more of a Christian Anderson kind of game? Are we going to change up a lot what we do? Because, that's a very talented team still, but long road ahead for a team that needs every point they can get. Joe, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Joe.
I feel like at the end of the day, losing your best player obviously is, demoralizing to the team. But, from a coach's perspective as well as a player's perspective, it's next man up. And, I feel like Texas Tech has that next man up. Obviously a player like JT Toppin, they know, obviously they're not as talented or, as good, as currently like as he was. But, next man up, you got to cover for what he did, got to get other guys involved. I feel like just taking the next man up mentality, throughout the program, obviously could even probably motivate you even more, to be honest with you. So I feel like that's what Texas Tech has been doing and are going to do, obviously with the next man up mentality.
Yeah. Coach.
Yeah. I love that, Joe. I think, but again, the culture too, right, of your program. And Texas Tech hangs their hat on defense. And, as much as Toppin's going to be missed, I mean, listen, Christian Anderson, I mean, if he's healthy and he's 100%, as they go, they're, on offense, Texas Tech is going to go. They're going to really need him to be that spark plug. If you remember back, Anderson, he was committed to Michigan when Juwan Howard was there. Originally from Atlanta, and then his dad played over in Germany. And he played over there growing up. But he's a really good player. And I think that, Akron has the player of the year, Joe, right? At the point guard position as well. Right? That they're coming in.
Jabari
What's his
Johnson.
name?
Yeah.
So that's a great matchup right there with two dynamic point guards. But I think the injury side of this is, as we said, look, you guys got to step up. You've got a culture. You've got an identity. Texas Tech plays a certain way. They're gonna play defense like crazy. They play hard as heck. I mean, any great defense starts with pressure on the ball, and Texas Tech pressures the ball as well as anybody in this tournament. So I do think Akron's going to be like, holy moly! But if their point guard who's is really, really good, can handle that defensive intensity and initiate offense and, get some paint touches that might give them make some shots, gives them a chance. But I do think those injuries, like Joe said, that next man up, that culture, rally behind that as opposed to, pointing fingers and blaming something. Those teams are probably home by now. It's the teams that are look at Caden Boozer the other night in the ACC tournament. I thought he was phenomenal the other night, in a very tough position. If you remember the game that he played in, I was watching that, and a Florida State game, they weren't even guarding him. They were like 10 feet off of him, like making him shoot the three. And then he started driving the ball and making plays. He got his confidence. I thought he was the reason why Duke advanced. I really do.
Yep. Yeah, that somebody like Caden Boozer, you knew was going to come around eventually. You're like, this guy's just got the mentality for it. Yes, there's some inefficiencies I can imagine people think about him, but it's like, hey, dude, look at his brother. Like, these guys mentally are ready for every moment. And I'm like, it blows my mind at 18 years old. Like, I'm astonished to watch everybody from DeBonsa, obviously, Fleming and all these guys, and now both Boozers. It made me more scared. I'm also a Carolina fan, so the fact that Duke does well makes me so mad, but you got to give them credit where credit's due. So this Duke team's very, very special. I still think that with a healthy bigs, they're going to be just fine. But the star power as far as the brands go in the East is awesome. Like, it's going to be so fun. And I'll kind of end on this one. We'll end on this last question, and then we'll give some picks. We'll give me your Final Four and your national champions. But first, who's a player you guys are most looking forward to in this tournament? Like, who's somebody you're like, all right, I got to tune in, must see TV. Joe, go with you first, brother.
There's a lot of guys.
I know this is a dude's bracket, dude.
Ooh,
You're talking about the East?
No, I got to go a whole tournament. Who's your number one? Like, this guy could be the guy that takes over and be the storybook. Like, like we had last year with Clayton Jr. Like, is there a Clayton Jr. again this year?
I feel like one player that sticks out to me, I've had the chance to play him last year in a pickup run at 9 a.m. in the morning. It's no surprise. I mean, they won the Big East Big Ten championship is Braden Smith. He's a senior. I feel like they play on a really good team. He's been to the Final Four before. Obviously he took over. If you watch the Big Ten championship game versus Michigan, he absolutely took the game over. I feel like I'm looking forward to watching him. Obviously I'm an undersized guard, like him, and just to see somebody that good, that quick, obviously defensively. He's in the passing lanes, really quick, really fast, and then just a leader. I mean, playing pickup in an open gym run at 9 a.m., he was, he wouldn't stop talking. He was all over the court, vocally especially, but I'm definitely looking forward to watching Braden Smith for Purdue.
Love that. Because they're a team that I was like, that's a very good one, because that's another team that I was like, I kind of made fun of a couple months ago. I heard this from Mark Titus at Barstool, and he was like, they kind of feel like the team that they beat up on all the suburban teams, and then they go play the inner city and they get their butts kicked. And then all of a sudden they turned it around and they look great, and you're like, oh yeah, this is still Purdue. This is Matt Painter. This is one of the best coaches in the tournament. Like, what else are we going to do? So, Coach, have you figured out yours?
Whew,
I know it's tough. I know it's tough.
There's so many there's so many good players. I mean, we haven't really talked much about Arizona. Listen, Arizona, it's really interesting to me because no one's really talking about this. If you were to take the salary cap for some of these G League teams, I mean, these college high level teams that are playing with this type of money, it's way more advantageous to play right now at a high major than it is right now in terms of just money than it is the G League. But you got to look at some. I mean, Arizona is good. Listen, this Big 12 now. I mean, and when you start, it's a little bit to me. The Big 12, we don't see it a lot because we've got the East Coast bias, and we watch the ACC, the Big East, the SEC. But let me tell you, that's a man's league. It's a grown man's league. I would not be surprised to see, a team like Arizona, not only advance. But they can beat you in so many different ways. They could play fast. That's what you look for to me in an NCAA tournament team is a team that no matter what or who they play in front of them, they can play fast with them if they want to play fast and still beat them. They can play in the half court and still beat them. And look, give you a perfect example of that. This St. John's Northern Iowa game, you're playing against two different styles of play in that Northern Iowa was very deliberate. It's the formula for a team that's not that talented to beat a juggernaut team. And here's the formula. When you're playing in college on the road, and this is a classic example of why you see upsets in college especially, is you have a team that really milks the clock and they'll pass the ball, they'll make you play defense, and all of a sudden with 2 seconds on the shot clock they make a three. And Joe will attest to this as well. I'm sure you guys know this. You get deflated on defense. You're like, we just guarded the heck out of them. Now they scored. Now we got to come down the other end on offense. And if we shoot it quick and we got to guard them again for 28 seconds, that's the formula of how some teams will limit possessions and frustrate other teams. And I think that's kind of a contrasting style. You're going to see this in this Northern Iowa St. John's game. Now, St. John's going to pick up full court, I'm sure, and pressure them and really try to get in there, get into them. But let me tell you, that's a contrasting style. So what I'm getting at is, I think player-wise, I think Arizona, Bradley, I think is just at that point where he's that one guy as a senior that I think is going to lead Arizona, deep into this tournament and maybe potentially cut down the nets. They're that good.
They're so good. It's funny too, like them and Michigan both. It's not smothered, and even Duke, like a lot of these top tier teams aren't smothered in NBA talent. It doesn't feel like the DeMarcus Cousins, John Wall, Kentucky teams. Like obviously Boozer and a couple of those guys, and I think they'll have a couple guys that go. In Arizona right now, I think besides Bradley, they don't really have like a lottery pick. Nobody's picking. Even Burries and all those guys, like they're great, but they're not lottery picks just yet. I'm just so impressed by like how good these three freshmen are for them. Like Arizona is so nasty. I would love Arkansas to be in any other bracket. Like I would pick them to go pretty far, but they're going to run into that buzzsaw. And it's like, Godspeed, my friend. San Diego is going to be filled with Arizona fans. Like that'll be a fun one. That's like my number one Sweet 16 matchup I'm looking forward to most. To hope both of them make it, but like that's going to be so fun because I think Arizona has special potential this year.
God, they're good. They're good, and they're grown men. I mean, those guys. As to your point. I mean, they're physically and mentally they're as good a team as there is right now in the tournament. But again, in a one game setting, different than the NBA. And we talk about this all the time, Joe and I. Look, you can beat somebody one game, but in a 4 out of 7, usually the best team really wins. Usually, one game though, anything can happen.
One game, baby. All right, Joe, I'll start with you, buddy. Final 4 picks and national champion. Go ahead.
I think the East region by far, is a gauntlet. All the legendary Hall of Fame coaches in it. It's gonna. I mean, it's really a coin flip, to be honest with you. But out of that region, I got Duke coming out just because, I mean, offensively, they're top 5, and defensively, they're number 1 statistically. So I can't – it's hard to pick against them. I got Houston, just because they're top 3 efficiency. I feel like, it's their year finally to make some noise, I feel like, in the Final Four. But I got them. I got Duke, Houston, Michigan, and Arizona. Like we said, Arizona's just, head and shoulders above everyone else, I think. So I got Houston versus Arizona in the national championship. And like I said, you got it's going to be tough to pick against Arizona. So I got Arizona winning the national championship.
Scott?
Well said. Well, first of all, as you know, and I'll make this point now, I think there's some teams in the first round that do have tough matchups, teams that I do think potentially could get to the Final Four that could get upset. I mean, Michigan State, North Dakota State. We all know what happens in March with Coach Izzo. But that North Dakota State, they got 5 kids returning. They really are efficient. That's not going to be an easy game for Michigan State. However, with that said, this really comes down for me, again, based on what I'm hoping, and this could change because, again, some of these teams in the matchups of who they play in that second weekend could change this a little bit. So it's going to be very difficult. I do think the 1 seeds, the 2 seeds, for the most part, maybe a 3 or 2, could get in there. But I like the 1s and 2s to advance. But again, that's 8 teams right there, and then you add a couple 3s. But look, I'm gonna go first of all to Joe's point. This East region, or this region with UConn and, I mean, Michigan State. I mean, Duke. I don't think Duke's. It just is just my opinion. I think their injuries right now are going to come into play. I think Coach Shia is one of the best coaches. He is excellent. I mean, he's very underrated. I don't care how many good players they have. They are very, very well schooled, very well drilled. But I do think the injuries could come back to haunt them. And that second round game against TCU Ohio State, that's not going to be an easy game because, again, I think a team pressures Duke right now. Without that strength in the backcourt, they could get beat. So let me end it like this. I'm gonna give it to Michigan State. I think Michigan State is the team,
Scott.
and it's gonna come out of that. I think they're gonna get there. I do. They're a little bit of a long shot team, but I think they're really good. And I just think I'm gonna go with Coach Izzo. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised to see UConn or St. John's either come out of that region. I think it's a Michigan State, UConn, or St. John's. I'm going to go against the favorites. I think it's one of those 3 teams. In the South, I mean, look, if it comes down to Florida and is it Florida and Houston in that bracket? Florida, Houston. I think it's going to be those 2 teams. Take your pick. I think Houston is that good. I really believe that this Houston team, I think Tugler is an absolute difference maker on both ends. And that you start talking about these freshmen, they've got freshmen right now that are producing. I'm taking Houston, I think, in a very close game against Florida. And in the West, I mean, I think Joe said it best. I think Arizona, to me, is the team to beat. But I got to tell you, there's a team that nobody's talking about right now that's really good. And every year they kind of, everyone's talking about this is their year, and Gonzaga. Gonzaga's no slouch either now as a 3 seed, and they could easily come out of this and get to the Final Four this year. So I think you've got to watch some dark horse teams in that region. But again, if you ask me right now, I'm going with Arizona. And then I think if the other side of it, again, another real coin flip. You've got Michigan and you've got Iowa State. And, Virginia's no slouch either.
Nope.
I don't know if they can, take care of business on that side of it. But I think Iowa State is the team that's going to come out of there for some reason. I think that again, I think Michigan's got some injuries. I don't know. I think Michigan, Iowa State, I think either one of those 2 teams, I think advance. I'm going to go with Iowa State.
Good. Because that's what I think you guys both convinced me. I think that's who I'm changing to. There's something about Michigan. I think they're incredibly good. I mean, you guys have all heard this, the Ken Palm ratings and all these stuff. These 4 teams are just through the roof compared to the average. But this Iowa State team might be that good this year. They might be that good. And I don't know. Do you know Kelvin Sampson at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. He
Okay.
actually, when I took over that brief interim head job there at Chicago State, he actually called me about a potential candidate to hire as an assistant. But a lot of respect for him. I just, the way he does things, and their system and how they play. Look, I tell you what, guys, Houston is going to be there. They're going to be right there. And they've got some underrated guys who are NBA talent, talented kids that we're not even talking about. So, but I do think that kid Tugler, again, just having that type of player on your team that could change the game defensively for you. And then offensively, he's underrated. And, I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. But look, man, this is going to be a tremendous NCAA tournament in terms of, once you get these higher, upper level teams that are all well funded, well put together, you're talking about some heavy, heavy hitters here going head up against each other in a 1-game setting. It could go a lot of different ways, but I do think the 1s and 2s and maybe a couple 3s, but that's what I'm looking at. But don't discount St. John's either. It's something, every time St. John's has lost this year, they come back and they've shown their ability to bounce back, and they're playing with a lot of confidence too. But again, they got a tough bracket. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. But the Big East is a conference that always does well in the NCAA tournament. Always, always.
Always a fact. Yeah, that whole East region just loaded full of good coaches that I feel dumb picking against. Yeah. So, man, fellas, I really appreciate it. Joe, Scott, you guys are the best. First father-son duo we've had on the pod. So, again, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to seeing you boys. Enjoy the best time of the year, the rest of the week. Godspeed on your brackets. We have very similar picks. So, I hope if you guys do well, I'm doing well. So, thanks again. As a girl dad of 2 now, and you also as a girl dad, Scott, it's always great to talk to you too, buddy.
No, it really is. Thanks for having us. I think, we had a blast, on the show with you. And if we do come back in the second weekend, we might have different picks based on who's.
Oh, yeah. We could totally screwed up this week. So.
But anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
All right, boys. You guys have a great one. Like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. We out.